Hello, I'm Nido Qubein. Welcome to Conversations with North Carolina's most influential leaders, appearing on the Power List presented by Business North Carolina. Dr. Atala, I'm so glad to talk with you. I've admired you for so long. You are making the world a better place. Your own genius in medicine and research, in discovery of new techniques to make the population at large in America and the world healthier, live longer, live happier. All of these things are remarkable contributions to our world. And for that, I thank you. Every time I've been with you, I learn from you. I admire your capacity to be so committed, so resilient, to attract so much financial support from government and other sources for research. Anybody who has not been to your place in Winston-Salem at Wake Forest University, downtown Winston-Salem, don't really understand the significant work that you're doing. You're doing an incredible amount. I want you to define for us, what is regenerative medicine? I always tell people, Tony Atala is a candidate for the Nobel Prize. His contributions are remarkable. The discoveries are going to enhance the world and make humanity feel better and live better. For someone who doesn't understand what regenerative medicine is, give us a definition.
Well, thank you, Nido. First of all, it's great to see you. And, I admire what you're doing here as well. It's amazing what you've done here at High Point University.
Thank you, sir.
Regenerative medicine is really a field that takes in a lot of different aspects of science to basically help to regenerate your tissues and organs, to make them better, to make them healthier. And that's really, in a nutshell, the field. It really touches upon pretty much many different areas to make your organs and tissues better.
Does regenerate mean recreate?
In a way, sometimes it does. Sometimes we're creating things from scratch, but you're really recreating what's already there because your cells already have all the genetic information. They have the playbook. Each cell in your body has a playbook of what it's supposed to do. So it's really making sure that you put them back in the same environment to let them do what they need to do.
So when you arrive at a utopic point in your journey of discovery, research, and therefore achievement, what is it you'd like to tell your grandkids? I have invested all my life to do this, and this has done that. What is that?
So first of all, one of the things we really need to take in is the fact that we're really not discovering anything, right? We're really rediscovering the wonders of what created us.
I mean, it's already there.
It's already there, right? It's been created. God's created this universe, and we have this creation that's there, and we're really just rediscovering the wonders that are there. I mean, it's really amazing to see how much information goes to make just one cell. I mean, the odds are odds of impossibility for it to work so wonderfully well. We're just really rediscovering what's there because it's already been created. And the second thing is, how do we make sure that we can, in a way, replicate what nature already does so we can make it better for our future, for our children, our grandchildren, and for generations to come.
But Tony, for someone like me who did not do very well in the sciences, nor do I have an intense interest in the sciences, my wife does, I have a limited understanding of it. What does that mean? What does it mean when you say the cell is already there and we're just rediscovering what's there? If it were that easy, people have been doing it for generations. Clearly it's not that easy. Clearly you're doing some magic in this process. So run me, what does that mean? Does it mean that if my kidney is in peril, there is some way for you to give me hope? Or if my liver, a better example perhaps, is in bad shape, there's hope that comes from your rediscovery process?
Absolutely. So that is really the goal of regenerative medicine. And our mission is really to improve patients' lives through regenerative medicine. And so let's say that you're dealing with organ disease. One thing to remember is that At the end of the day, nature made us with a 10x reserve for pretty much all our organs. We really, you're out there playing tennis every Friday and you're perfectly fine, and one day you're out there playing tennis and you get chest pain. They rush you to the hospital, they do an angiogram, and now they find out that your blood vessel to your heart is over 90% obstructed. Well, you did not get pain when that blood vessel was 70% obstructed or 80% obstructed. You only had the pain when it was over 90%. It's the same thing with your lungs. You don't show up short of breath until you're over 90% gone. You don't show up with kidney failure until you're over 90%. So our bodies have this amazing resilience and reserve. The question is, when that reserve starts giving out, how can we make sure that we refill the tank, if you will, and really get rid of that scar tissue and put new tissue in that's going to do what it's supposed to do?
I see. So, but if the body has so much reserve, 10x reserve, and it allows me to get to 90% problems before it puts up a yellow flag, I'm not sure I like that. I worry about that. I would like for my body to tell me at 20% problem, hey, you got a problem here.
And that's the key really to the future of medicine. It's about preventive medicine. You don't want to detect a problem when it's 90%, like you mentioned. You want to detect that problem when you're at 50% or even less. You're heading in that direction, let's prevent it.
Because the chance of dealing with that in a healthy way is better, right?
It's much better.
Yeah.
Much, much better. That's part of the solution too.
So what is preventive medicine? Is it exercise, is it diet? What is it?
The basic things that you hear all the time, right? Eat a good diet, exercise well, stay away from toxic substances.
Don't smoke cigarettes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Things that are bad for your body that vaping, cigarettes, excess alcohol, things that are, excess fat consumption. All those things we know for a fact that they're related to more disease and more challenges down the future.
But Tony, I know some people who've done all that and died at 55.
Well, genetics definitely plays a role. So, we are all made up from our genetics, which is the genes that we were given when we were born from our parents. And we also have to deal with epigenetics, which means the changes that occur based on your behavior and your environment. And so it's that fine balance. So you may have the gene to develop a certain disease, but if you prevent some certain things from happening, you can actually prevent the progression of that disease.
Minimize it at least, yes.
Minimize it.
What percent does DNA as in genetics play in predicting your capacity to avoid something or another, to live longer or not?
Well, there are definite features that are present in your genes that in a way that actually predetermine certain factors. Like if you're born with a gene, for example, for cystic fibrosis, right? You're going to be born with cystic fibrosis. That's a black and white thing. Or you are born with a defect in a gene that prevents you from making a protein that is going to be problematic for you to live long. Those things are predetermined. But for the most part, you're not dealing with single gene defects. You're dealing with just abnormalities in your body that you need to overcome, and you can help to overcome them by living a healthier life.
How does someone know what their genetics are?
Well, you can actually sign up right now and get your whole genome done for very inexpensive. You can just get a little swab from your mouth, send it into a lab, and you get a genetic analysis that tells you what your genes are and what you are predisposed to and what are the things that you can do to prevent that.
So does it tell you when you're going to die so you can make arrangements and all that?
No, no one knows the time, right? When
exactly,
it comes.
Right? Science is precise, but not that precise.
Not that precise.
This all fascinates me. I mean, I know that you are working on scientific discoveries or rediscoveries, on significant vertical research that can recreate in one's body, using their own cells, certain pieces of your body, a kidney, a liver. How do you do that? How do you recreate a part of my body?
So the strategy is that we take a very small sample of tissue of the organ that we want to regenerate. So it's your own cells. We take a very small sample of tissue, less than half the size of a postage stamp. We can then expand those cells outside the body into large quantities, and we can then use those cells to recreate the tissue, either by hand, or we can print them, or we can inject them. And what we're doing is, because we're using your own cells to create that tissue or organ, it will not reject. Your body will recognize it as its own.
Yeah.
But you're basically creating new structures for your body.
Can you actually recreate whole pieces of the body, like a liver, for example?
Well, we can recreate structures that are flat, for example, like skin. Tubular structures, so the next level of complexity, like blood vessels. The next level of complexity are hollow non-tubular organs like the bladder or the stomach. And these rise in complexity because of the architecture and also because of cell function. But by far the most complex are the solid organs, like the liver, the kidney, the heart. And they all require different strategies. So we have been able now to place therapies for all those types of organs in patients using various strategies.
And how many employees do you have in your organization?
We currently, at the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, we have about 470 people all working together to bring these technologies from the bench to the bedside.
And how many of those are, what shall I ask, MDs, PhDs?
So we have MDs, PhDs, MD PhDs, master students, scientists of all types. So it's a multidisciplinary field, right? Because when you're creating a tissue or an organ, it's not just cell biology. It's cell biology, molecular biology, genetics, material sciences, engineering, nanotechnology. So it's really, it takes a village to get these tissues and organs into patients.
And so far, if you were to point to some very successful outcomes, what would they be?
Well, you know, probably some of the technologies that have now entered the field, entered patients, and been out there now, things in the skin area, right, where you can actually, heal skin through various strategies by
You mean what a dermatologist would do, or
like for a burn,
or burn,
for example,
I
for a
see.
burn,
Yeah.
or for example, tubular structures like urethras. That's a channel that connects the bladder to the outside of the body. Those have been implanted into patients, or bladders have been implanted to patients. Therapies for cartilage regeneration. Muscle, skeletal muscle regeneration, kidney, patients with kidney failure who are heading to dialysis and you're trying to prevent them from getting there. So many different conditions. We've now, the field has really advanced in many ways. A lot of technologies have gone into patients. Out of the Institute, 16 applications of our technologies have actually entered into patients at this point.
Wow. And does age have something to do with it? For example, someone who's 50 versus someone who's 85. My assumption is someone who's 50 has greater likelihood of success vis-a-vis regenerative medicine than someone who's 85. Where am I wrong?
Well, actually, your cells keep producing no matter how old you are.
Really?
Yes.
So an 85-year-old still has, but if that's the case, why do people die?
Well, there's so many factors, right? Because it's not just your cells, it's the blood vessels that feed your cells, and it's, the nerves that are, so there are a lot of factors, but in reality, your cells are still there. And whether you're 8 or 80, you're still reproducing cells.
But are they not weaker? Are they not more feeble as you grow older?
The cells remain the same.
Really?
Interestingly, yes, the cells remain the same, but the backing for the tissue may be different, right? We lose collagen as we age, that's why people get wrinkles, kind of thing. So your body does go through changes over age, but in reality, your cells remain genetically the same from the time you were born to the time you die, and they still reproduce. Now, they may not reproduce as fast, but they do reproduce.
And your work is dependent on cells.
Correct.
That's why it works.
That's right, because at the end of the day, we are really targeting the cells in your body to really recreate tissues and organs or therapies that we can put right back into you.
I know a person now who's about 82, 83. He's about to go on dialysis in a matter of 2-3 months. Why wouldn't that person get some recreation in his body, regenerative medicine that will avoid that?
Well, they could if they qualify for some of the clinical trials that are ongoing.
I see. So it's all clinical trials. It's not, at this moment, it's not mass application.
Some of them are starting to get into mass application, like skin, for example. But these technologies are available through clinical trials, and patients are being treated over time. But the FDA has a very well-controlled, designed pathway to make sure that these technologies are safe. And the average time, just for a drug, for a pill, the average time from the time you get it to the first patient to the time it gets finally approved, the average time is about 18 years.
Really?
Yeah, it goes through a very, very slow process to make sure that and each trial you're doing more and more patients. So eventually you start with a small number of patients and a larger number of patients and even a larger number, and then finally it gets approved for wide dissemination.
So Tony, this is an unfair question I'm going to ask you. Do you have full faith in what FDA does and the way they do it? I hear, for example, certain meds cannot be approved in the US, but people can go outside the US and get the same med from another country.
Well, you know, the FDA really is there to protect the consumer. And they're doing a really good job at what they do. I mean, if you look at, the technologies out there, and we see very few problems with technologies out there today compared to the past. And so it is a path that we need to follow because of safety. And they've actually have changed with the times. They have really tried to, the FDA has tried to modernize itself and has tried to reinvent itself. So I think they're in a good path as well.
So being conservative is better than the alternative.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, what is it that you're doing right now that you're really excited about? You can't wait to talk to a friend or a fellow regenerative medicine expert about?
It's interesting because, we work on about 40 different technologies. And at the end of the day, they're affecting different types of diseases that affect different people. And you may say, well, this is more important than the other one. But in reality, they're not. Because if you're the patient, that challenge is the most important thing for you. And so for us, the importance of those technologies is equal because we know that there's a patient at the other end.
But what about some technologies are more advanced than others? You're excited that this technology has gone from here to here versus others are still in these stages. Yes. You mentioned skin, for example. That would be an example. You mentioned muscle, skin.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. I would say probably the most exciting time for us is whenever we actually get the go-ahead from the FDA to put yet one more thing into the patient pathway, because a lot of work goes in. As you can imagine, there are so many steps to create a tissue, right? I mean, you're creating tissue, uses cells, materials, reagents, chemicals, all kinds of things.
Living organism, right?
A living organism.
Yeah.
And so you go through a lot of steps to finally get that go-ahead that says, okay, you've shown that it's worked preclinically, you get the go-ahead and try it in patients. That's the most exciting thing for us because it says we've reached another milestone where we can help patients.
Yes. How many other groups in the world or in the country are working similarly?
There's probably not a single university in the world that does research that is not involved in some fashion in an area related to regenerative medicine, whether they're working with cell biology or biomaterial sciences or just delivery of therapies. Many researchers all over the world. It was an emerging field, is still an emerging field, but it's a growing field. And that's good because it means that technologies are working and people are getting behind it.
But isn't that duplicative? I mean, isn't that someone over there doing the same thing that you're doing? You'd rather get their research, they'd rather get your research?
No, it's a field where knowledge is additive and it's compounded. We're very big on collaborations. Every January, we do an inventory of how many active collaborations we have. This January, we are at 501 active collaborations, of which about 440 are national and 60 are international. And so we're big on collaboration, making sure we work with individuals and centers and scientists all over the world, trying to push this field forward.
When you speak, and I know you're called upon so many times to speak around the world, do you still show a video about how organs are created? I remember seeing one time a video which explained it to me in layman language, what it is you're talking about. Do you still do that?
Yeah, we still have a number of videos that we use to show what we do, because it is actually hard to conceptualize, you know?
It is for me, because one has to be learned in that field to understand how the interconnectivity of which you speak is applied.
Yes. You know, I'll make it very simple. You're taking cells from a patient, you're expanding them, you're creating a three-dimensional mold in the shape of the organ, and you're coating the cells very much like baking a layer cake, if you will. Then you put in this oven-like device that has the same conditions as a human body, then you can take it out and plant it back into the patient.
I think I'm going to start that tomorrow morning. I'm going to find a couple of MDs and rent a warehouse and get going on that, Tony.
Now, I have to emphasize that's highly oversimplified, but that's really, in fact, what gets done.
So to people watching us now, and they're not scientists, they're business people, and they're applying that to their own life, and they're saying, I am a hardworking, go-get-em, every day of the week business person, or I'm a leader of an organization that has challenges and therefore is stressful. I have to work with many stakeholders, or I have many, many challenges, or I lead a public corporation where every quarter I got to report the numbers and I'm afraid about what's going to happen. What do you say to them about life and living, prolonging a healthy existence, not merely years, but a quality life? Besides the norm, eat well, exercise, things that we all know, what else? Is there something else that you would say to business people?
You know, it's interesting. Longevity has become a major area of interest now, right? Everybody wants to live longer.
Yes.
And that's because we have so much more at our disposal now.
We are living longer, are we not?
We are living much longer.
Yeah.
So the average survival, life expectancy in 1900 was about 40 years of age in 1900. Today, it's over 80 years of age. So we've doubled our life expectancy in, a century. And so, but there's a challenge, because we are talking about living longer, but the key is living longer with quality of life.
Yeah.
And that's where the challenge is. Mm-hmm. How do you achieve that?
In some countries, even today, the life expectancy is still in the 40s or 50s. Am I right? Some third world countries where...
Absolutely. The quality of the water, the environment, the nutrition. I mean, just think about how much nutritional supplies we have today that we didn't have before. Mm-hmm. Even the healthy alternatives, right? Before, if you wanted something sweet, it was just processed sugar. Yeah. Now you have all these substitutes out there.
No excuse for us anymore, right? No, if we're serious, there's no excuse.
I believe that your nutrition and what you consume is one of the most important things in terms of having longevity. It really is. It's an exercise. So I hate to get back to the basics, but really eating well, exercising well, and avoiding toxic agents in your body is the way to assure the best outcome for you long term.
Is moderate use of alcohol a toxic agent?
Actually, alcohol is an interesting story, because as you know, there was a lot of literature early on that said if you drink red wine, there's an ingredient in red wine that's going to make you live longer.
French have demonstrated that for years.
Well, companies actually were built around it. Then the science showed that's not really the case. There's nothing in wine specifically, in red wine, that gives you that. But the studies now over the last several decades have actually shown that a small consumption of alcohol daily is actually very good for you. And that's about 4 to 8 ounces of wine, no more than that per day.
Like one glass of wine.
Like one glass of wine a day is a perfect thing for the body, because it really has a lot of additive effects for you, even for your blood vessel disease, for Alzheimer's, for many other conditions. The evidence is overwhelming. So one glass of wine per night is a good thing.
Tony, the fact that we're living longer must put an enormous amount of pressure, economic stress on healthcare in general, right? I mean, the more people living longer, there's more demand for medical attention. And yet at the same time, there's this enormous, again, my layman language, this enormous pressure placed upon medical professionals because of insurance requirements, because of Medicare regulation. The story goes on and on.
Absolutely. I mean, we're living, the demand for organs has skyrocketed, right? Over a 10-year period, the number of patients on the transplant list went up tenfold. Well, at the same time, the actual number of transplants went up less than 10%. And that really has to do with the fact that we're living longer.
Or awareness.
Well, the longer we live, the more our organs tend to fail.
Right, and we become more aware that such opportunities actually are available.
Absolutely, absolutely, also awareness. And so as we age, our organs tend to fail more, and that's why I go back to the point that it's not just about living longer. It's about living longer with quality of life.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's empirical evidence on this, but you certainly would know. Why is it that, this is an assumption, that people live in Florida or Hawaii or somewhere at the beach seem to be calmer, gentler, living longer? Is there something to that, or am I imagining?
No, I think there is something to be said about stress, right? And you've heard the stories, I'm sure, over and over again of someone that, a financial crisis came, and how many people died from heart attacks after a financial crisis, right? So stress is a major challenge on us as well. And so it's the ability of us to manage stress as well. So, and certainly if you're out, living in less stressful areas, that's also helpful.
You're at the beach every day, the sunshine is out. How does one manage stress? A business person whose the demands upon them are so many.
So, I have to say that in reality, I'm not going to tell you how to manage stress for everybody, but I can tell you how, what I believe are good points to manage stress, and that has to do with really accepting the reality. And I love 2 rules that I follow. And rule number 1 is only worry about the big stuff in life. And rule number 2 is most everything in life is little stuff.
Yeah. Is that medical information you're giving me? Is this empirical data?
This is, I actually have all these sets of rules, and that's one of the rules I follow.
Well, Tony, we live in an ever-changing, globally competitive marketplace. Innovation is demanding business leaders to be up front and center. Expectation on performance is getting higher and higher vis-a-vis business people's leadership and what their companies are doing for shareholders and others. Regulations impose stressful expectations on business leaders. I just think our world has become much more stressful, not less stressful.
No doubt, no doubt. I think that, and it has to do with information dissemination, right? If you think
or
back...
misinformation.
And misinformation.
Social media filled with it.
But remember, I'm sure that, our parents, our grandparents, when they were doing business, they were sending letters. and you would have to send a letter, and you would wait, a month to get another letter back.
Tony, I did that. When I came to America, that's what I did. I wrote my mother an aerogram. Took a week to get there. If she answered me that same day, she received my letter. Took a week to come back. We learned the art of patience.
Exactly.
Now we email or we text or we call, and we're all going like this, like maniacs all the time.
And you want, and with the text, you want an instant response.
Instant response.
And all this information, and so all this information is coming in. Imagine when we were in school, I remember that we were not learning about RNA synthesis till we got to college. Now our children are learning that in first grade.
Yeah.
In first grade.
Yes.
So the information has grown enormously. I think there's more pressure out there. Everything is more competitive. And I think we do live in a more stressful world. And I think, if COVID taught us anything, it's that it was a good time to break and relax.
We live in a more stressful world, yet we live longer. Is that because of medication?
I don't think that that's actually the relation. I think that the relation has to do with better nutrition and a better health care. In the old days, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, just, a few decades ago, when people were, they didn't realize the nutritional requirements that they needed. And that's still a challenge in many parts of the world. Where all these diseases that occur due to malnutrition, right? And so I think that we are lucky, in our nation to have the resources we do. But when you go to other countries, that's just not the case.
Yeah, literally is not available.
It's not available.
The resources, natural resources may not be available. Just a word on the state of North Carolina. Vis-a-vis healthcare, vis-a-vis medical attention, treatment, vis-a-vis resources available for North Carolinians, both in cosmopolitan areas and in rural areas. How do you qualify that? Do you say we are really ahead of the pack in the country? Do you say, oh my goodness, we've got some issues with that? What is your take on that?
Well, I just love the state of North Carolina. We are number 3 in the biotech sector in the whole country. And number 1
in the biotech.
In the biotechnology area. And in the state of California, that's number 1, but it's huge, right? California is a large state. Yeah. Massachusetts is number 2, but North Carolina is number 3 in the whole nation.
I didn't know that, yeah.
And for the last 2 decades, the one state that has surpassed all other states in terms of growth in this biotechnology sector is North Carolina.
Really? And that translates into what for me, the citizen?
Well, having the biotechnology, first of all, is a great commercial venue for the whole state because you have high-paying jobs, you're attracting very smart people to the field, and the payback in terms of every dollar you spend in biotechnology, you're spending, at least equal amount in other services.
Of course, economic impact, etc.
The economic impact, and that's what we're trying to do in the field of regenerative medicine. We've established this ecosystem of business entities that are in our very own backyard, and we're attracting new companies in here of regen med as well. So biotechnology in the state is a major driver for our economy, and attracting companies in this sector is also a positive thing.
As far as hospitals, medical care, affordability of health care, where do you think we are in North Carolina? Are we in a good place, moderate place, great place?
And we're in an excellent place. Right now, Atrium Advocate Health, which is based in North Carolina, and we are part of that system. We are now the 5th largest healthcare system in the country, with 67 hospitals, over 1,000 outpatient facilities serving 5.5 million patients. And so, and we are driving. If you look at Atrium Health and now Advocate with its merger, and Gene Woods the CEO, driving new changes in healthcare which have been unprecedented. You're going to hear about partnerships with consumer entities. You're going to hear about population health advances. And it's all coming here from North Carolina.
So you're optimistic about the future.
I am very optimistic.
What are you worried about?
To be honest, you remember my 2 rules.
You only worry about the big stuff and all of it the small stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
Dr. Tony Atala, you are an amazing specimen of a human being. And you are an extraordinary leader in your field and beyond. And I've never known you not to give. You give your time, as busy as you are. You share with people wherever you can. And I believe you've been blessed intellectually and physically and socially and spiritually because of who you are. You're built from the inside out. I've known you a long time. I have a tremendous amount of admiration for you. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Nido. It's mutual. Thank you so much.